The drama surrounding Mike Tyson's most dangerous encounters is usually told through highlight reels of lightning-fast knockouts and opponents collapsing in fear. But hidden within that legend is a story far more unsettling. A story of a man who did not crumble, did not flinch, and whose presence alone forced even Iron Mike to hesitate. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, when Tyson was considered less a boxer and more a force of nature, there was one heavyweight whose punches carried a different kind of threat. This was Donovan "Razor" Ruddock, a man whose fists were so heavy, so destructive, that the sport itself seemed unsure how to contain him. To understand why this matchup still echoes through boxing history, you have to understand the version of Mike Tyson that existed before the fall. This was not the troubled figure of later years. It's not the fighter grasping for relevance, but the fully realized creation of Cus D'Amato's philosophy. Prime Tyson was compact, explosive, and terrifyingly efficient. He stalked opponents with a predator's patience, slipped punches by inches, and detonated hooks that ended careers in seconds. Heavyweights didn't just lose to Tyson, they were erased by him. It's often left staring blankly at the lights while the crowd roared in disbelief. He didn't just dominate the golden era of heavyweights, he traumatized it. Yet even at the height of that dominance, there were moments when the invincible aura cracked. There were exchanges when Tyson found himself hit clean, moments where he had to look across the ring and acknowledge real danger. Donovan Ruddock represented that danger in its purest form. Nicknamed Razor, not for speed or finesse, but for the damage he inflicted. Ruddock was built like a tank and fought like one. Every punch he threw carried the intent to break something. Watching him fight felt less like a sporting contest and more like survival. Ruddock's rise through the heavyweight division was brutal and efficient. He wasn't padding his record or carefully maneuvering through safe matchups. He was bulldozing opponents with a level of power that made even seasoned professionals look helpless. Over a 15-fight winning streak, 13 ended in knockouts, many of them devastating enough to silence entire arenas. Fighters didn't just go down, they folded. They staggered, collapsed, and struggled to stand long after the bell. There was a sense that Ruddock's punches didn't merely hurt. They rearranged something fundamental inside the body. Central to his mystique was a punch that became legendary almost on its own. Ruddock's signature weapon, often referred to as the smash, was a hybrid blow. Part hook, part uppercut, thrown with brutal torque from his core. It came from an awkward angle, slipped through guards, and landed with catastrophic force. Opponents who tried to anticipate it were too slow. Those who didn't see it coming were simply erased. It was a punch so effective that commentators joked it belonged in a laboratory rather than a boxing gym as Ruddock's reputation grew. Fighters noticed, promoters noticed, and, perhaps most tellingly, some champions quietly stepped aside. Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, and others understood the risk. Ruddock was not a man you fought for a paycheck or a belt alone. He was a man you fought knowing you might leave a piece of yourself in the ring. While the heavyweight division was full of power punchers, Ruddock's power felt different, raw, and unforgiving. And that made him dangerous in a way statistics couldn't fully explain. The inevitable collision with Mike, while Tyson seemed destined. Contracts were discussed as early as late 1989 when Tyson was still the undisputed king. Yet the fight didn't happen immediately. Tyson cited illness, bronchitis, and the delay lingered just long enough for fate to intervene. In February 1990, boxing witnessed one of the greatest upsets in its history when Buster Douglas shocked the world and knocked Tyson out in Tokyo. Overnight, the aura shattered. Tyson was no longer untouchable, and the heavyweight landscape shifted beneath everyone's feet. While Tyson's world unraveled, Ruddock's momentum only intensified. He tore through his next opponents with frightening ease, spending barely any time in the ring. 8 total rounds across 3 fights was all it took. His confidence was sky high, his body healthy, and his power unquestioned. He spoke openly, taunting Tyson, promising hell, insisting that, behind all the bravado, Tyson knew exactly what awaited him. To the public, it sounded like hype. To those who understood boxing, it sounded like a man who genuinely believed he could break Iron Mike. When the fight was finally set for March 1991, anticipation reached a fever pitch. This wasn't just about titles or rankings anymore. This was about pride, legacy, and fear. Many fans believed Ruddock would do what Douglas had done and more. They believed Tyson, still rebuilding after the loss, might not survive Ruddock's onslaught. As both men made their ring walks, the tension was palpable. This wasn't a spectacle, it was a confrontation. From the opening bell, fight delivered exactly what the world expected and more. Every punch sounded like it carried a grudge. Tyson came out aggressively, bobbing, weaving, firing combinations with his familiar ferocity. But Ruddock didn't retreat. He met Tyson in the center of the ring, answering power with power, refusing to be intimidated. When Ruddock landed clean, the reaction was immediate. Tyson felt it. The crowd felt it. There were moments where Tyson seemed to acknowledge the impact, daring Ruddock to do it again, a sign of both bravado and respect. Tyson's style, however, posed unique problems for Ruddock. The relentless pressure, the angles, the inside fighting made it difficult for Ruddock to fully unleash his smash. Still, when he found openings, they were terrifying. One uppercut in particular stunned Tyson badly, forcing him to reset and reminding everyone watching that this fight was far from routine. This was not Tyson walking through another challenger. This was a war. As the rounds wore on, Tyson's experience and conditioning began to show. He managed to knock Ruddock down, sending a shock through the arena. Yet even on the canvas, Ruddock didn't look broken. He rose with fury, as if the knockdown only fueled his aggression. The exchanges became wilder, more dangerous, with both men taking punishment that would have ended most heavyweight fights. It was boxing at its rawest, two men refusing to concede an inch. Then came the moment that still divides fans decades later. In the 7th round, after Ruddock absorbed a series of punches, the referee stepped in and stopped the fight, declaring a technical knockout in Tyson's favor. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Ruddock was on his feet, protesting, ready to continue. Tyson looked surprised. The crowd erupted in anger. Too many, it felt like the fight had been stolen from both men. The gladiators had been denied the chance to settle it. Themselves, the outrage was so intense that a rematch became inevitable. 3 months later, on June 28, 1991, Tyson and Ruddock met again, this time with nothing left to question. The buildup was even more volatile, filled with insults and threats that blurred the line between promotion and genuine hostility. This was no longer just a fight. It was unfinished business.